Hi, Steve here in my workshop in Bellevue. Today I'm going to talk about having support for doing ripping stock on your Shopsmith. And here I'm standing next to my new router table. And you're going to say, well, what's your new router table have to do with your Shopsmith? Well, I'm going to show you here a feature from my new Jessem router table, which can actually be used over on the Shopsmith. And it's these clear cut stock guides. That's this item here and this item here. It's so that when we're feeding stock, it will force the stock. I'll put this down. These wheels will only go one way. So when I'm feeding stock, I can feed it, but it can't go backwards. It will keep the stock down against the table. Also is at a 5-degree angle, so it forces the stock against the fence when we're feeding it. And so with this clear cut stock guide, I can do stock all the way down to on the table, all the way down to the table, up to 2 1/4 inch in thickness through this. And then the stock guide on the opposite side, it does the same thing on the outfeed end. And so, and this, I can position these anywhere I need to. So I could feed my stock, it makes sure it keeps it against the fence and down against the table, and also prevents kickback. So over on the Shopsmith, I'm going to show you next the Shopsmith solution to this, the Shopsmith design solution for making sure stock is against the fence and down on the table. So we're going to turn around now. I'm going to try and set up to accomplish the same thing on my Shopsmith using Shopsmith equipment. Okay, now here over on my Shopsmith Mark IV, it could as well be your Mark VII or one of your other machines that you have. The solution that Shopsmith provides is through Featherboards. And so to keep the stock against the fence, we have this Featherboard right here for keeping stock against the fence. So, for example, I just finished running some 2 1/4 inch wide stock in preparation for my series on doing frame and panel construction. And when these were run through, then this Featherboard is adjusted to keep it against the fence. Now, that's all good and well, but on the Featherboards, when we feed, they have some flex in them. So these fingers, they have give on them. So the stock can move away from the fence, even using a Featherboard. And it's a balancing act. If you have it so that it can't possibly move away the fence, there's so much pressure against it that you can't push your stock through. And if you have it too loose, then the stock can move away from the fence and compress those fingers. So now that gets it against the fence. Now what about down on the table? What's the Shopsmith solution for that? That is this auxiliary table here that Shopsmith will sell you. And it's around $100, something in that range. And it mounts on the fence through these T-nuts here. So to mount this on the fence, we'll slide this in from this end. Okay, so here's this fence gets mounted here, and adjust it right, put it about right there. And then you'll use your 5/32 to tighten that up where you want it on the fence. So there's that one. And now tighten up this one. Okay. And then to keep it down on the fence, then you have to mount these 2 Featherboards on the auxiliary fence. So I'm trying to think, yeah. So that would go there, and then we'll put these on the back side and adjust our fence. And I said adjust the fence, I mean adjust the featherboards. Now this particular extension for the fence, it has a, if you'll notice that this up here, this is indented here. This is also designed so you can turn it upside down and you can use it on your joiner as well. It's a dual purpose. So let's mount the other one here. Which will mount here. Why don't you pull? Okay, so here you can see me on the back side. I'm pressing down on these fingers to get them adjusted for the tension down on the board. And then I'm tightening these wing nuts up here. Get my tension there. And now I'll bring the camera back around the front side. And we'll mount this in here. So when we're cutting our stock, get the fence back here. There's that one. And there's that one. Okay. So there we are. So that is the Shopsmith design solution to address that. For pushing the stock down with these fingers and pushing against the fence with these fingers. Now you notice that there's nothing pressing the stock against this fence on the outfeed end. You can't, because the part that you're cutting off is over here, and that would pinch that into the blade, so you can't have any support pushing against the fence on the outfeed end on this solution. So this is all good and well, and you know, it's a balancing act. This can come up from the table. You can see the fingers will compress. So that's the Shopsmith solution. Okay, so I'm going to switch over. We're going to show you how I can use those Jessem Clear Cut stock guides. I'll mount them on my Shopsmith and get rid of all of these feather boards and this extension board and not have to deal with any of that. All right, so now we're back at my Jessem router table. And so now we're going to take off these Clear Cut stock guides off here and just slide off by loosening these knurled knobs. And what we're going to do is we're going to change out the knurled knob and the bolt that goes in the T-track for the Jessem, and we're going to replace those with the Shopsmith T nuts and a thumb screw that has a 1/4 inch / 20 threads, 3/4 of an inch long. That's what you need to do to make that changeover. Okay, there's that one. Now we'll just do the same thing to the other one. Okay, so now that I've got the hardware switched over, this is what the backside then looks on each of these Clear Cut stock guides. And now I'm just going to slide these right into the side of the fence on the Shopsmith. And I'll have you watch me do that over here now. So this is the in-feed one, and then this is the outfeed. You can tell because these will only roll in one direction if you get them in there correctly. Okay, so we'll just loosen these and slide these in from the back side of the fence. Oops, I just realized I put that T-nut on backwards. So flip it over. You got to make sure when you put these on, put them on in the correct direction. You want the flange here on the T-nut to be away from the Clear Cut stock guide. You want it to be the closest to the fence. Switching that one around. Okay, so once we have these on here, you want to have this one here so that the pressure here is just before the blade, like you would with your fingerboards. And this one here, you want to have it just after the blade here, where you want to have this one positioned. Oh, it came out. Let's see if I can get that in there again. Okay, so those are positioned. Now the next thing, all I need to do is adjust my height of the table. So the way we do that is I'll loosen this, that will come up. This one here, I'll loosen this, it'll come up. Once we have it in here, tighten down this one. I want to push this down against the stock and push this down against the stock. And now it will feed, but it won't come backwards. So now what this is going to do is this will hold it down on the table. It will also force it against the fence at the same time. And all you'll have is these. Won't have any of these featherboards or the extension table fence on there at all. And so I've used these to cut all of this stock you see right here. And I'll just tell you, these are wonderful. They're actually wonderful. You'll notice on these, you don't see a single mark of a tooth from the blade or burning or whatsoever. These are so beautiful at keeping it against the fence. And the beautiful thing on these is you probably had the experience where you're feeding some long stock, and when you're feeding through with the featherboards, you feed through and you get up a certain point, then you've got to stop to move your hands back, And when that happens with those featherboards, oftentimes the stock will move slightly away from the fence. And that's where you start getting your burning and your teeth marks. With these, you get absolutely no burning, no teeth marks whatsoever. They're a whole lot easier to use. Now let's talk about cost. The Jessem makes one of these for a table saw. It's not these. That one's a little bit more elaborate. It mounts to the top of the fence and has a little bit more elaborate mounting system. It's a little more adjustable. With these here that I've got on here, you can do stock up to 1 1/4 inch in thickness. With the one that mounts on the top, you can do thicker stock, and you can also have these positioned not just here, but they could go a certain distance out this way as well. So the one that mounts on top of the fence, Scott Markwood did a very good video on using that with the Shopsmith. If you want to get that one, you're going to spend close to $300. If you get these right here, less than $100. And so I just find I'm going to be using these on all my ripping operations from now on. So it's a good alternative, and I highly recommend it. One other situation where these outshine the featherboards are where you're going to be ripping some wide stock like this. You see in this particular case, when I go to feed this stock through, I can't use featherboards because the board is covering up this slot. So in this case, the featherboard is not even an option to have something to hold against the fence. Only the clear cut stock guides will do that. Hope this has been a benefit to you. I'll see you on the next one.